Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here tonight. If you're settling into bed, curling up on the couch, or just finding a quiet moment to yourself after a long day, you've come to the right place. This is a peaceful corner of the internet where science meets wonder, where the rational and the mysterious dance together in the darkness. Tonight, we're exploring something that has captivated philosophers, mystics, and scientists for centuries. Something that happens every single night behind your closed eyes while the rest of the world sleeps. We're diving deep into the realm of quantum dreams and the hidden code your subconscious is desperately trying to reveal. Here's a strange fact to sit with as we begin. The neurons in your brain operate at speeds that classical physics says should be impossible. Information processes through your mind faster than the known laws of electricity and chemistry can explain. Your dreams, those surreal narratives that feel so vivid and real while you're experiencing them, are orchestrated by quantum processes happening in structures so small we couldn't see them until very recently. And somewhere in those dreams, in those midnight stories, your mind insists on telling you there's a code, a language, messages from your subconscious that are trying to reach you, trying to guide you, trying to show you something about yourself and reality itself that your conscious mind might never access in the daylight. What if everything you thought you knew about dreams was only half the story? What if they weren't just the brain's filing system or an escape valve for stress, but something far more profound? A bridge between the quantum world and your conscious experience. A conversation happening in a language woven from memory, emotion, symbol, and the very fabric of the universe itself. The idea sounds strange, maybe even a little impossible, but the science is catching up to the mystery. Researchers at prestigious institutions are finding evidence that consciousness itself might be rooted in quantum phenomena, that the boundary between the classical and quantum worlds might exist not in the laboratory, but inside your own mind. And if that's true, then your dreams aren't separate from those quantum mysteries at all. They're where the mystery becomes visible. They're where the quantum processes of your brain translate into stories, symbols, and sensations. As you listen tonight, notice how this idea might resonate with your own experience. Think about a dream you've had recently, how real it felt, how your dreaming mind accepted the impossible without question, how you were simultaneously the author, the observer, and the character in the story. That's not a glitch in your mind. That's not a random firing of neurons. That, some researchers now believe, might be consciousness itself expressing through quantum states, accessing layers of information and possibility that your waking mind can't quite reach. Before we descend into this exploration, I want to gently invite you into a different kind of thinking. Not the analytical thinking you use during the day, but something softer, something more receptive. Imagine you're opening a door into the quiet chambers of your own mind, into the spaces where logic relaxes and meaning becomes symbolic, where a simple image can carry the weight of 1,000 thoughts, where your deepest self communicates in the language of dreams. This journey won't give you all the answers. Science still wrestles with these questions, but it will show you that your dreams are far stranger and more magnificent than you ever imagined. That your subconscious isn't just a repository of forgotten memories and suppressed fears. It's a quantum computer running in the background, processing information at speeds beyond conscious perception, weaving that information into the fabric of your inner world. And if you're willing to learn that language, to decode those symbols, to listen to what your midnight mind is trying to tell you, you might discover something extraordinary about who you really are. So take a breath, settle in, let the rational mind relax for a moment, because tonight we're going to explore the most intimate frontier of human experience, the space where physics meets psychology, where consciousness meets the quantum realm, and where your dreams might hold the key to understanding reality itself. Let's begin. When we talk about the relationship between quantum physics and consciousness, we're entering territory that makes many scientists deeply uncomfortable. For the last century, neuroscience has operated under a fundamental assumption. That consciousness is simply what happens when billions of neurons fire in patterns, when electrical impulses travel across synapses and chemical messengers relay signals from brain region to brain region. It's a clean, mechanistic picture. The brain is a biological machine, consciousness as the software running on that hardware. And yet some of the most rigorous physicists and neuroscientists in the world have begun to whisper something else. What if the classical laws of physics alone aren't enough to explain consciousness? What if something stranger is happening inside your brain? Something that requires the weird and counterintuitive rules of the quantum world to fully understand. This is called the quantum mind hypothesis, and it represents a fundamental departure from mainstream neuroscience. The hypothesis suggests that quantum mechanical phenomena like superposition and entanglement may play a crucial role in how your brain generates consciousness. Now, this isn't mysticism dressed up in scientific language. This is serious theoretical physics meeting serious neuroscience, resulting in ideas that are speculative but scientifically grounded. Think of superposition for a moment. In the quantum world, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed or measured. An electron isn't here or there. It's both here and there at once, existing in a cloud of possibility. Imagine a coin spinning in the air. While it's spinning, it's not heads or tails, it's both. Only when it lands, when observation collapses the superposition, does it become one or the other. Most of your conscious experience doesn't work that way. You have a thought, a single thought. But some theorists believe that at the quantum level, your brain might be leveraging superposition itself. That perhaps multiple potential neural states exist in superposition in your brain until consciousness collapses them into a single experience. Your subconscious might be processing billions of possibilities simultaneously, exploring multiple futures, multiple interpretations, multiple versions of reality. And then consciousness, that unified field of awareness, collapses all of that possibility into the single experience you have, which would mean that your sense of having a single, unified conscious experience might be the result of quantum processes happening countless times per second, billions of superpositions collapsing into singular moments of awareness. When you dream, you might be witnessing that process. You might be observing the quantum collapse happening in real time. This takes us directly into one of the most fascinating theories in modern neuroscience. A theory that emerged in the 1990s when a Nobel Prize-winning physicist named Roger Penrose and an anesthesiologist named Stuart Hameroff proposed something radical. They suggested that consciousness arises from quantum processes happening inside tiny structures within your neurons called microtubules. Now, microtubules are real. They're actual biological structures found in every cell in your body. They're part of the cytoskeleton, the internal scaffolding of the cell. They look like microscopic tubes, and for a long time scientists thought they were just structural supports. But Penrose and Hameroff theorized something different. They proposed that these microtubules could perform quantum computations. that they could maintain quantum coherence, that delicate state where quantum effects remain intact and usable, even in the warm, wet environment of the living brain. According to their theory, called orchestrated objective reduction, or ORC-OR, each time a quantum wave function collapses inside a microtubule, it gives rise to a moment of conscious experience. In other words, consciousness itself might be the universe observing itself. It might be the moment when quantum possibility becomes classical reality, not in a laboratory with carefully controlled conditions, but inside your own skull, happening billions of times per second. For decades, this remained theoretical, speculative. Many neuroscientists dismissed it as science fiction. But in recent years, experimental evidence has begun to emerge. Researchers have observed quantum coherence in microtubules lasting thousands of times longer than predicted by classical physics. At the University of Central Florida, scientists using ultraviolet light observed quantum effects in brain tissue and detected re-emission of visible light over hundreds of milliseconds. This is extraordinary. It suggests that the quantum effects that should only exist in isolated laboratory conditions can actually persist and function inside living neural tissue. Think about what that means for your dreams. If microtubules in your neurons are indeed performing quantum computations, if your consciousness is genuinely rooted in quantum phenomena, then your dreams aren't just electrochemical noise. They're not just your brain shuffling files and clearing clutter. Your dreams are what happens when quantum processes in your brain translate themselves into narrative form. They're the interface between the quantum realm and your conscious experience. But there's another layer to this mystery that might matter even more for understanding dreams. Another theory that suggests consciousness isn't even confined to the physical space of your brain at all. Imagine for a moment that your mind doesn't end where your skull ends. What if consciousness is better understood as a field that surrounds your brain, something that exists in a higher dimension than the 3 spatial dimensions we perceive in our waking life? This is the dimensional consciousness field hypothesis, proposed by Dr. Dirk K.F. Meyer from the University of Groningen. According to Meyer, consciousness may reside in a field existing in the 4th spatial dimension, communicating with your brain through quantum entanglement and quantum tunneling. Now, this is speculative. This remains unproven, but the idea is compelling. It would explain why information processing in your brain happens faster than classical neuroscience can account for. It would suggest that your subconscious mind is literally larger than you thought, that it extends beyond your skull into dimensions we can't directly perceive, and that dreams might be one of the few times your conscious mind gets a direct line of communication with this larger field of consciousness. Picture it like this. Your waking mind is the small circle of light cast by a flashlight. You can see only what's illuminated by conscious attention. But your subconscious, according to this theory, is the vastness of the darkness beyond that light. And dreams are the moments when the darkness speaks, when the larger field of consciousness transmits information back to the small circle of waking awareness. When you're asleep, your analytical mind relaxes its guard. The symbolic language of the subconscious, the quantum field of consciousness, it finds a pathway through, and that pathway is the dream. As you're listening to this, you might feel something shift inside you, a sense of possibility opening. This isn't about believing in something supernatural. It's about recognizing that the universe is far stranger than we've been taught. That consciousness might be more fundamental, more mysterious, more interconnected than the mechanistic model suggests, and that your mind right now might be far larger and more capable than you ever imagined. Your brain and your consciousness might not end at your skin. Your dreams might not be confined to the firing patterns of your neurons. They might be conversations happening at the quantum level, between the deepest parts of your mind and the fundamental nature of reality itself. Now, all of this connects back to one of the most important discoveries in quantum physics, a principle that sounds simple but carries revolutionary implications. It's called the observer effect, and it might hold the key to understanding how your consciousness shapes not just your dreams, but your entire experience of reality. In quantum mechanics, there's something strange that happens when you try to observe a quantum system. The act of observation itself changes the outcome. In the famous double-slit experiment, particles behave one way when they're being observed and a completely different way when they're not. When a detector is watching, the particles act like particles. When no one's looking, they act like waves. The universe literally behaves differently, depending on whether anyone is paying attention. It's as if reality is negotiating with observation, as if the very fabric of existence has different modes depending on whether it's being witnessed. And this principle might extend beyond the laboratory. If consciousness itself has quantum roots, if your awareness is fundamentally woven into the fabric of reality, then your observation of anything, including your own mind, changes what that thing becomes. Researchers at the Weizmann Institute of Science conducted a highly controlled version of this experiment. They found that the more intensely they observed a beam of electrons, the more they changed the electrons' behavior. It was as if the universe itself responded to the intensity of observation. The greater the watching, the greater the influence on what actually took place. Now, the standard interpretation among most physicists is that this is a measurement issue. The instruments we use to observe quantum systems inherently interact with them, so, of course, the observation changes things. It doesn't require consciousness to be special or fundamental. And that interpretation may be correct, but some branches of quantum theory and some interpretations supported by ongoing research suggest something more radical. That consciousness itself might play a role, that the observer on some level might influence what's observed through the very act of observing. This has profound implications for how we understand dreams. When you dream, you are simultaneously the observer and the observed. You're the consciousness watching the dream unfold, but you're also the creator and the character within the dream. You're observing your own subconscious processes in real time. According to the observer effect, your observation of those processes changes them. Your consciousness, focusing on the dream, collapses the quantum possibilities into specific dream imagery and narrative. Your mind is literally creating reality moment by moment at the quantum level. This remains a speculative interpretation. Not all scientists agree on the role consciousness plays in the observer effect, but it's a compelling framework for understanding why dreams are so malleable, so responsive to emotion and expectation, so deeply personal. Your consciousness doesn't just passively receive dreams, it actively creates them through the quantum act of observation. And then there's the question of where the subconscious fits into all of this. If consciousness is quantum, if it exists in fields we can barely perceive, if the observer effect suggests consciousness shapes reality, what about the vast majority of your mind that operates below conscious awareness? What about the subconscious, that deeper intelligence that generates dreams, drives behavior, and processes information without your conscious knowledge? According to some quantum interpretations, the subconscious might have direct access to the quantum field in ways that your conscious mind doesn't. While your waking consciousness is linear, focused and limited by the rules of classical logic, your subconscious might be tapping into quantum superposition. It might be processing multiple possible futures, multiple possible versions of yourself, multiple threads of information simultaneously. From this perspective, the subconscious isn't beneath consciousness. It's not primitive or inferior. It's fundamentally different in nature. It operates in quantum space while consciousness operates in classical space, and dreams are the translation layer. They're where quantum information, processed by your subconscious in superposition states, gets translated into classical narratives your waking mind can perceive. This means that when you dream, you're not just clearing the mental clutter of the day, you're receiving messages from a deeper layer of intelligence. Information that your subconscious has been processing at quantum speeds, woven together into symbols and narratives. Your dreams are the subconscious trying to speak to you in the only language available to it at that time of night. The language of symbol, emotion, and metaphor. And now, if you're enjoying these explorations without interruption and finding yourself drawn deeper into these ideas each time you listen, I want to gently mention something. Members of this channel get early access to every episode, 48 hours before anyone else, and completely without ads. So you can drift through these ideas in uninterrupted calm, exploring consciousness at your own pace, without the outside world knocking on the door. It's an optional thing, something you can explore whenever you feel ready, but many people find that these deeper investigations into mind and mystery go even deeper when you're not pulled out by commercial breaks. You can join them anytime, but for now, let's continue our descent. Understanding dreams requires understanding the architecture of sleep itself, the intricate system that generates those quantum processes in your brain. And this brings us to REM sleep, the stage where the most vivid and elaborate dreams occur. This is the fertile ground where your subconscious does its most intense work. REM stands for rapid eye movement, and it's one of the most extraordinary states your brain enters every single night. When you drift into REM sleep, something remarkable happens. Your brain becomes nearly as active as it is when you're fully awake. Brain waves that look nearly identical to waking brain waves begin to ripple through your cortex, but simultaneously, your body becomes nearly paralyzed. Your muscles don't move. Your eyes dart back and forth beneath your eyelids, as if watching an invisible film. Your heart rate fluctuates. Your breathing becomes irregular. It's as if your mind wakes up fully, while your body remains locked in place. This stage was discovered quite recently in the history of neuroscience. In the 1950s, researchers noticed the rapid eye movements and the high brain activity, and realized they were witnessing something new, a unique state of consciousness that's neither waking nor typical sleep. And they found that when they woke people during REM sleep, those people reported vivid, elaborate, often bizarre dreams. But when they woke people during other stages of sleep, the dream reports were sparse, conceptual, less vivid, less emotionally charged. The neurobiology of REM is fascinating. Electrical and chemical activity regulating this phase originates in the brainstem, the oldest evolutionary part of your brain, the part that controls basic survival functions. During REM, there's an abundance of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, combined with a near-complete absence of other critical neurotransmitters, like serotonin and norepinephrine. It's a very specific chemical cocktail, and it seems to create the exact conditions necessary for dreaming. In fact, scientists have observed specific electrical bursts during the transition into REM sleep called PGO waves, pontogeniculo-occipital waves. They originate in the brainstem and ripple through your visual processing centers. These waves seem to initiate the REM state, to flip the switch from sleep into this extraordinary dream-generating phase. Most adults cycle through REM sleep about 4 times per night, with each REM period lasting longer as the night progresses. Your first REM session might be only 10 minutes long, but by the end of the night, a single REM period can stretch to an hour or more. This is why your most vivid, most complex, most bizarre dreams tend to happen toward morning. You've been dreaming for hours. Your subconscious has been processing for hours. The dreams become more elaborate, more strange, more saturated with emotion and symbol. And something very unusual happens to your brain during REM that might explain the quantum aspects of dreaming. Your brain suspends what scientists call central homeostasis. This is the system that normally keeps your body tightly regulated. During REM, there are large fluctuations in respiration, in body temperature regulation, in circulation. Things that never happen during waking or during other sleep stages. This suspension of homeostasis might be necessary precisely because your brain is performing quantum computations. It might require that relaxation of normal biological constraints to allow quantum coherence to form and persist in your neural tissue. Your body is literally creating the conditions necessary for quantum phenomena to happen inside your brain. Think about the implications of this. For 6 to 8 hours every night, your brain enters a state specifically designed to allow quantum processes to flourish, to allow superposition, entanglement, and quantum information processing to happen without interference. It's not an accident. It's not a leftover evolutionary remnant. It might be one of the most important biological functions you perform. It might be the reason consciousness exists at all. And the deeper you descend into the neural architecture of dreaming, the more extraordinary it becomes. Because the regions of your brain that activate during REM tell a specific story about what dreaming is for. During REM sleep, certain brain regions light up with activity. The visual cortex becomes highly active, generating the vivid imagery of dreams. The amygdala, the emotional processing center of your brain, shows marked activation. The hippocampus, crucial for memory, becomes engaged. But simultaneously, the prefrontal cortex, the region associated with rational thought and logical analysis, goes mostly offline. Your inner editor leaves the room. The part of your brain that says, "This can't happen," or "That's illogical," or "You should feel embarrassed about this," steps back. And without that guardian of logic, your mind is free to explore possibilities that waking consciousness would never allow. This isn't a malfunction. This isn't your brain making mistakes. This is your brain deliberately creating an environment where certain kinds of thinking become possible, where memory, emotion, and imagination can combine in novel ways, where your subconscious can process information at quantum speeds without the interference of logical constraints. And here's what's remarkable. The regions of your brain that activate during REM are not random. They're the same regions involved in self-referential processing, in understanding yourself, in accessing personal memories and emotions. During your dreams, your brain is focusing intensely inward, not on the external world, but on your internal world, on who you are, on what matters to you, on your deepest emotions and your most treasured memories. Your dreams are profoundly self-directed. They're about you, by you, generated by you, and that sustained inward focus, according to some researchers, might be an essential function. a time when your brain deliberately withdraws from external awareness and dives deep into self-analysis, self-understanding, and self-transformation at the quantum level. Your subconscious is literally rebuilding itself every night, rewiring connections, integrating experiences, processing emotions, growing and evolving in ways that only become possible when you're asleep. It's not maintenance. It's not just defragmentation. It's active reorganization. It's your deeper self, the part of you that operates at quantum speeds, reconfiguring the fundamental architecture of who you are. Now, in the darkness of your mind during these REM periods, something else is happening. Something that might hold the key to understanding the symbolic language of your subconscious. Something that suggests dreams aren't just about processing the day or clearing emotional clutter, but about communicating deep truths in a language older than words. Your brain is encoding information in symbols, taking the raw material of your experiences, your emotions, your memories, and your deepest fears, and translating them into dream imagery. A symbol that means one thing to one person might mean something entirely different to another. A house might represent safety or entrapment depending on who's dreaming. Water might symbolize emotion or danger or cleansing. Your subconscious chooses these symbols carefully. It weaves them together into narratives. It creates dream stories that communicate meaning that your conscious mind might never fully grasp. Hey, this symbolic language might be the only way your subconscious can communicate with your waking consciousness. Your subconscious doesn't think in words or logical sentences. It thinks in images, in feelings, in metaphors, in sensation. It processes information in ways that bypass language entirely, and so it translates its knowledge into symbols. It creates dreams. When you have a recurring dream about being chased, you're not just reliving a fear. Your subconscious is trying to communicate something specific about what you're running from in your waking life. When you dream of flying, it's not random fantasy. Your subconscious might be exploring the sensation of freedom or attempting to transcend limitations. When you find yourself back in your childhood home in a dream, your subconscious might be accessing memories or emotions stored in relation to that place. The symbols your subconscious chooses are deeply personal. They're drawn from your specific life, your specific experiences, your specific psychology, which means that your dreams, in their symbolic language, are entirely about you. They're messages from the deepest parts of your own mind, speaking in the only way that part of your mind knows how. A symbol is efficient. It carries multiple layers of meaning in a single image. It can hold emotion and knowledge and memory all at once. Your subconscious, operating at quantum speeds, processes meaning through these dense symbols rather than through language. Language is slow. Symbols are instantaneous. Symbols compress vast amounts of information into single images. And that's the language your dreams speak. Some interpreters suggest, and this is speculative, that these symbols might be more than just personal. That your subconscious might be tapping into what some call collective symbols or archetypal meanings, patterns of meaning that transcend the individual, universal symbols that appear in myths and dreams across cultures: water, fire, the journey, the guardian, the shadow self. Your subconscious might be accessing these collective meanings while simultaneously weaving in your personal experience. This would make sense if consciousness is indeed quantum in nature and connected through quantum fields. If your subconscious can access information beyond the purely classical neural processing of your individual brain. If it's genuinely tapping into a larger field of consciousness or a deeper layer of shared information, then your dreams might be more than personal. They might be a conversation between your individual self and something larger, something collective, something that connects you to the broader flow of human experience and meaning. Each night, as you drift into REM sleep, you're not just dreaming, you're participating in something that might be universal. Your brain is performing the same quantum processes that humans have been performing for millions of years. Your subconscious is speaking in symbols that echo through mythology and spiritual traditions and the deepest layers of the human psyche. You're not alone in the darkness. You're connected through the fabric of consciousness itself to every human who has ever dreamed. And that realization, I think, changes everything about how we understand ourselves and the code our subconscious is so desperately trying to reveal. And that realization, I think, changes everything about how we understand ourselves and the code our subconscious is so desperately trying to reveal. So what is this code exactly? What is the language your subconscious speaks when it creates these elaborate narratives every night? To understand that, we have to go deeper still, below the surface of what you remember from your dreams, into the hidden layers where information is actually being processed and stored. The code beneath the surface is not written in words. It's not logical propositions or straightforward instructions. It's written in something far more ancient and efficient. It's written in resonance, in pattern, in the subtle signatures of information that your quantum brain can process at speeds that classical neural firing simply cannot achieve. Think about how information travels through a network, the fastest computers on Earth, the ones we built with our conscious minds. They process information through electrical signals jumping from transistor to transistor. One signal, one moment, one calculation at a time. Sequential, linear, logical. But your brain doesn't work that way. Your brain, especially when it's dreaming, seems to process information in parallel, simultaneously. Multiple threads of processing happening at once without stepping on each other, without creating chaos. This is exactly what quantum superposition would allow. Multiple states existing at the same time, multiple possibilities being explored simultaneously. It's like your brain can hold 1,000 contradictory ideas in superposition and still maintain perfect coherence, perfect unity. That's the miracle of quantum processing. Your subconscious, operating through quantum processes during REM sleep, is essentially running a massive parallel computation. It's taking all the experiences from your day, all the emotional residue, all the unresolved tensions and unfinished thoughts, and it's exploring them from every angle at once, not sequentially, not one memory after another, but in superposition, all together, all at the same time, every possibility, every interpretation, every potential meaning. Your subconscious is asking all the questions. What does this mean? How does this connect to my past? What emotion lies beneath this? What pattern is trying to emerge? What needs my attention? What am I resisting? What wants to grow? All of these questions being explored simultaneously in quantum space. Your subconscious is in a kind of conversation with your life, a dialogue between your past and your future, between your conscious self and your deeper self. And then it translates that quantum exploration into something your classical conscious mind can perceive when you wake up. A dream, a story, a series of images that somehow seem to compress vast amounts of meaning into brief moments, a translation from quantum language into classical narrative. This is why dreams feel so dense. Why a single dream sequence, something that might take only a few minutes to experience, can feel like it contained hours of narrative when you're experiencing it. Why you wake up sometimes with the sense that you've been dreaming for ages even though only minutes have passed. Your brain is processing exponentially more information than waking consciousness typically handles. It's doing things that shouldn't be possible according to classical neuroscience alone. It's performing calculations that should take longer than your sleep cycle would allow. But if quantum processes are involved, if your microtubules are performing quantum computations, if your consciousness field is quantum in nature and tapping into dimensions beyond three-dimensional space, then suddenly those speeds become possible. Suddenly the density of information makes sense. Your brain isn't just reorganizing files like a classical computer might. It's exploring possibility spaces, mapping terrain that exists in superposition, finding pathways through quantum landscapes that have no physical equivalent in the classical world. It's doing work that exists partially outside of normal time, work that spans dimensions your waking mind can't quite perceive. The subconscious is encoding information in this quantum language during sleep. It's sending messages that your waking consciousness struggles to decode because consciousness operates in a fundamentally different mode. Consciousness is classical. It's binary in some ways. This or that. One thought after another. Sequential, linear. One word follows another. One moment follows another. But the subconscious during REM sleep is quantum. It's superposition. It's entanglement. It's possibility waves collapsing into actuality. It's exploring all paths simultaneously and somehow distilling that exploration into a narrative your waking mind can grasp. Imagine if you could explore every possible way to solve a problem at the same time. Every angle of approach, every potential solution, every consequence of every choice, all happening in parallel instead of sequentially. That's what your subconscious is doing with your psychological material, your memories, your emotions, your unresolved questions. It's exploring all of them at once, finding the deepest patterns, the most significant connections, the meanings that matter most. And here's what makes this truly extraordinary. The more you understand this, the more you begin to see patterns in your own dreams. The more you recognize that they're not random. They're not the brain's filing system engaged in mindless organizational work. They're something far more intentional. Your subconscious is deliberately encoding information in these dream narratives. It's crafting messages specifically designed to communicate with your conscious self. It's trying to reach you across the gap between quantum and classical information processing. It's speaking in the only language that bridges that gap. Metaphor, symbol, emotion, image, the language of poetry and myth and felt truth. The language that can hold quantum meaning in classical form. If you've ever wondered why you can't simply remember your dreams clearly, or why dream logic seems so strange to waking consciousness, this is part of the answer. The code is written in a language fundamentally different from words or logical statements. It's written in the language of quantum possibility, and translating that into classical language is like trying to describe a symphony using only single musical notes played one at a time. You lose the richness, you lose the depth, you lose the simultaneity that makes it beautiful. You lose that sense of multiple meanings happening at once. You lose the quantum nature of the dream. But your subconscious knows this. On some level, in the quantum depths of your mind, your subconscious understands that it's trying to communicate across this gap. So it's strategic about how it encodes information. It chooses symbols that your conscious mind will recognize. It uses emotional intensity to highlight what matters. It creates narrative structures that, even though they seem irrational on the surface, actually contain profound patterns if you learn to see them. It's like your subconscious is a translator, standing at the boundary between quantum and classical, doing its best to convert impossible mathematics into dream imagery, into story, into meaning your waking mind can hold. The code is there. It's been there all along. Your subconscious is desperately trying to reveal it to you. You just have to learn to listen in a different way. You have to learn to think in pictures and feelings instead of words. You have to learn to hold multiple interpretations of the same dream symbol without needing them to collapse into a single correct answer. You have to learn to live in the superposition where contradictions coexist, where a house can be both safety and danger, where flying can mean both freedom and fear, where water can heal and harm simultaneously. That's the quantum language of dreams, and that's what your subconscious is speaking. Now let's talk about how those symbols work, because symbol is the key that unlocks the subconscious code. A symbol is remarkable in its efficiency. A single image, a single object or person or place can carry the weight of complex emotional and psychological meaning. It can compress vast narratives into a single icon, and your subconscious, operating at quantum speeds, where information is processed in superposition, uses symbols with incredible precision. Consider a house in a dream, a simple house. Maybe it's a house you've lived in. Maybe it's a house you've never seen before. But what does a house mean? It could represent safety. It could represent entrapment. It could represent your own psyche, different rooms representing different aspects of yourself. It could be connected to memories from childhood. It could symbolize a period of your life, or a relationship, a foundation, a container for your inner experience. The meaning isn't inherent in the house itself. The house is neutral. The meaning is encoded in the specific context, the specific emotional tone, the specific details that your subconscious chooses to highlight. The condition of the house, the temperature inside, whether the doors are locked or open, whether the lights are on or off, whether you're welcomed or hiding, all of those details carry information. They're data points in the quantum computation your subconscious is running. This is why dream interpretation can't be generic. When someone tells you that dreaming of water means emotion, or that flying means freedom, they're offering general templates. Dream dictionaries are useful sometimes, but they're also dangerous because they flatten the meaning. They collapse the superposition. They turn something quantum into something classical too early. Your dreams aren't general. They're specific to you. They're incredibly specific to you. Your subconscious is speaking directly to you, using symbols drawn from your personal experience, your unique psychology, your individual emotional landscape, your particular history. When you dream of a house, your subconscious is drawing on your specific memories of houses, your feelings about security and exposure, your experiences of home and homelessness, your relationship with your childhood home, your hopes and fears about creating a home of your own. All of that gets encoded in that single symbol. The house becomes a vessel for all of that meaning. What makes this process quantum, what makes it different from simple classical association, is the simultaneity. Your subconscious isn't going through a linear process of selection. It isn't thinking, well, I want to represent safety, so I'll choose a house. That's classical thinking. That's sequential. That's the kind of thinking your conscious mind does during the day. Instead, your subconscious is exploring all possible symbols simultaneously in superposition until the exact right symbol emerges. The symbol that carries exactly the right layers of meaning for your specific situation. the symbol that will resonate most powerfully with your waking consciousness when you recall the dream. It's as if your subconscious is holding all possible symbols in quantum space, testing them against the meaning it's trying to convey, until one symbol crystallizes, collapses from superposition into classical form, the perfect symbol for your specific situation at your specific moment in time. That's why dream symbols are so precise, even though they seem mysterious. Your subconscious chose exactly the right symbol from an infinite field of possibility. Water appears frequently in dreams across all cultures and all people. But that doesn't mean everyone who dreams of water is experiencing the same dream. One person's water might be threatening, a flood, drowning, chaos. Another person's water might be peaceful, a calm lake, a gentle rain, healing, cleansing. The symbol is universal in some sense, but its meaning is personal. It's encoded with your specific emotional and psychological content. And the deeper pattern here is even more interesting. The symbols your subconscious chooses tend to appear again and again in your dreams over time. If you pay attention to your dreams, if you start keeping track of them in a journal, you begin to notice these recurring signatures. People who appear repeatedly, places that show up in different dream contexts, objects that seem to carry emotional weight, no matter where they appear, a particular colour, a particular quality of light, a particular sensation. These aren't coincidences. Your subconscious is using these as anchors, as markers, like landmarks in a territory that you're gradually learning to navigate. Your personal dreamscape has its own geography, its own language, its own set of symbols that mean something specifically to you. Some researchers call these archetypal symbols. The idea is that certain symbols carry meaning that transcends the individual, the hero, the shadow, the wise old person, the journey, the threshold, the mirror. These show up in myths and stories from every culture, and they show up in your dreams too. Now, this could simply be explained by the fact that all humans have similar life experiences and emotions. We all face challenges, we all have fears and desires, we all grow and change, we all encounter wisdom and darkness and transformation. So naturally we develop similar symbolic languages to represent those universal human experiences. That's one interpretation, and it's probably part of the answer. But here's where quantum consciousness adds another layer. If consciousness is genuinely connected through quantum fields, if your subconscious can tap into dimensions beyond classical neural processing, then maybe these archetypal symbols have a deeper reality. Maybe they're not just similar across cultures, because humans are similar, but because they're tapping into something shared, some layer of consciousness that connects all humans, some field of meaning that exists beyond the individual mind, some repository of pattern and symbol and archetypal truth that all human subconscious minds can access. This is speculative. This remains unproven. But some theorists suggest that if consciousness is fundamentally quantum, if it's entangled and interconnected across individuals, then your DRIA misses might give you access to something far larger than your personal psychology. Your dreams might be touching that deeper collective consciousness, that shared field where all humans meet in superposition. When you dream of a shadow figure or a wise guide or a dangerous threshold, you're not just accessing your own psychology. You might be accessing something collective, something that connects you to the entire human experience of grappling with growth and fear and transformation. You might be touching mythological patterns that have been carved into human consciousness for thousands of years, the patterns that heroes and mystics and artists have been drawing and describing and singing about since the beginning of human culture. Those patterns don't disappear. They get encoded into the fabric of human consciousness itself. And when you dream, when your subconscious accesses quantum states, you might be touching those ancient patterns. Your dreams, in this view, are never purely individual. They're always simultaneously personal and collective. Your subconscious is speaking with your voice, using your memories and your specific emotional landscape and your unique life situation. But it's also speaking in a language that echoes through thousands of years of human mythology and meaning-making. You're not inventing the symbols, you're discovering them, drawing them up from a deep well that isn't quite personal, that seems to connect you to something larger than yourself. Your subconscious knows secrets that are older than your lifetime, wisdom that predates your birth, patterns that were ancient when your ancestors were dreaming the same dreams in different lands. This is part of what makes dreams so powerful. This is part of what makes them feel so meaningful, even when they don't make logical sense. Your subconscious is communicating on multiple levels simultaneously. It's speaking to you personally, while also speaking in a language that connects to the broader human experience. It's encoding personal meaning and universal meaning in the same symbol. It's translating both your individual psychology and the collective human psyche into image and narrative and emotion. That compression, that density of information, that's part of the quantum miracle happening in your brain every night. One symbol carrying infinite meaning, one dream touching both personal and collective truth. Now, understanding this symbolic language requires a different kind of thinking than your waking consciousness typically employs. It requires what some might call right brain thinking, intuitive thinking, associative thinking, rather than linear, logical analysis. It requires you to feel into the symbols rather than analyze them, to notice what resonates, to recognize patterns in the images and emotions that recur across your dreams, to sit with ambiguity, to hold multiple interpretations without collapsing them into a single meaning too quickly. This is why dream journaling is so powerful. Not just remembering the dream, but writing it down, sitting with the images, letting them speak to you over time. Gradually you begin to recognize your personal symbolic vocabulary, the language your subconscious uses to speak to you, the particular metaphors and images that carry meaning in your inner world, the recurring elements that appear like threads weaving through all your dreams. And as you become fluent in that language, something remarkable happens. The gap between conscious and subconscious narrows. The messages your subconscious is trying to send become clearer. You start to recognize not just what your dreams are showing you, but why they're showing you these things now. What current situation or emotion or challenge prompted your subconscious to generate this particular dream? You begin to see the code beneath the surface, the hidden communication that was always there, waiting for you to learn how to read it. This is where we begin to see how deeply the science of subconscious communication intersects with the quantum mysteries we've been exploring. Because science is starting to confirm what mystics and therapists and artists have known for centuries. That the subconscious mind is not beneath consciousness. It's not primitive or inferior. It's not some leftover evolutionary relic that we've outgrown. It's a vast intelligence operating according to different principles, operating at quantum speeds, processing information in ways that classical consciousness cannot begin to match. And dreaming is how it reaches you. The only reliable channel of communication between the quantum depths of your mind and your classical waking awareness. The science shows us that during REM sleep, specific parts of your brain light up with activity. The emotional centers, the amygdala, the memory centers, the hippocampus, the visual processing areas, the visual cortex generating elaborate internal imagery, but not the areas associated with rational analysis and logical judgment. The prefrontal cortex goes quiet. The areas that would normally edit and critique and say no to illogical things step aside. This isn't a malfunction. This isn't your brain malfunctioning. This is design, elegant design, your brain deliberately creating the exact conditions where quantum processing can flourish, where the subconscious can do its deepest work undisturbed by the demands and constraints of classical logic, undisturbed by the inner critic and the rational mind and the part of you that insists everything makes sense. And the information processing that happens during this time is extraordinary. Researchers are still trying to measure it. Your brain is consolidating memories. It's transferring experiences from short-term storage to long-term storage. It's processing emotions that were too intense or complex to fully handle during the waking day. It's extracting meaning from your experiences. It's finding patterns. It's making connections between distant events and memories and ideas. But it's doing all of this at speeds and with sophistication that exceeds what we'd expect from purely classical neural processing. There's something more happening, something that the old models of neuroscience can't quite explain, something that science is only beginning to measure and understand. The discovery that quantum effects can persist in the warm, wet environment of living brain tissue has changed everything, revolutionized everything. For decades, scientists thought quantum phenomena were too fragile, too delicate to survive in biological systems. The quantum realm was thought to exist only in laboratories, in isolated conditions, in the extreme cold of quantum computers or the void of space. It couldn't possibly persist inside a living cell where there's heat and noise and constant molecular motion, where thermal energy would destroy delicate quantum states almost instantly. But we now know that was wrong. We now know that quantum effects don't just survive in the brain, they thrive. They're essential to how the brain functions, how consciousness emerges, how your subconscious processes information at speeds that astonish researchers when they finally manage to measure it. Your brain has somehow found a way to preserve quantum coherence, to maintain quantum states, to perform quantum computations in an environment that should destroy quantum effects. Researchers have observed quantum tunneling in the brain, particles and protons moving through barriers in ways that classical physics says should be impossible. They've observed what appear to be entangled states in neural microtubules. They've measured coherence times in brain tissue that are thousands of times longer than predicted. These aren't small discoveries. These are revolutionary findings. They suggest that life itself has learned to harness quantum phenomena, that biological systems have evolved mechanisms to preserve and utilize quantum effects. And your brain, your incredible brain, has mastered these mechanisms over millions of years of evolution. Your brain is a biological quantum computer. You're carrying around inside your skull right now a quantum computing system of extraordinary sophistication. Your subconscious is using these quantum capabilities constantly, every single night, every moment when you dream, every time your intuition speaks to you without conscious reasoning, every time you know something without knowing how you know it, every time you solve a problem overnight and wake with the answer, every time you feel drawn towards something or repelled from something for reasons you can't articulate. Your subconscious is operating in quantum space. It's accessing possibilities and processing information in ways your waking mind can't directly perceive. It's exploring superposition. It's holding contradictions simultaneously. It's accessing entanglement. It's tapping into dimensions of information that classical neural processing can't reach, that sequential logical thinking can't touch. That's why your intuition often seems wiser than your reasoning. It's because your intuition is drawing on quantum processing, on parallel computation, on access to vast possibility spaces that your conscious mind processes too slowly to use. And your subconscious is trying desperately to communicate that information back to you, to share that wisdom. It's trying to translate what it knows from quantum space into classical imagery and emotion and narrative that your waking consciousness can grasp and hold on to. Every dream is an attempt at translation, a message travelling from quantum space to classical space, from the vast parallel processing of your deeper mind to the sequential linear thinking of your waking consciousness. And every dream is tailored specifically to you. Your subconscious knows exactly what symbols will resonate with you, exactly what emotions will penetrate your defenses, exactly what narrative structure will make the message clear enough for your conscious mind to receive it. Take a moment as you listen to this. Notice what you're feeling. Are you skeptical? Are you fascinated? Are you both at once? That combination of feeling, that superposition of emotions, might itself be a message from your subconscious. Your subconscious knows that these ideas seem impossible by classical logic. It knows that your rational mind wants to dismiss them. It knows that you're supposed to be suspicious of ideas that can't be proven or measured in conventional ways. But it's sending you the message anyway, despite the resistance, despite the impossibility, through the dream imagery in your mind, through the resonance you feel with these ideas, through the sense that something true is being spoken here, even if you can't quite grasp it logically, through that sense of recognition that something in these words is familiar to the deepest parts of your being. That's quantum communication happening right now. Your subconscious trying to reach you across the gap between quantum and classical, trying to tell you something that you already know at some level, but have forgotten how to access. This is the hidden code, not some mystical secret shrouded in mystery, not something beyond science or reason, but something deeply scientific, grounded in physics, rooted in the quantum nature of consciousness itself. Your subconscious is desperate to reveal it because it knows something your waking mind forgets during the day. It knows that you're bigger than you think, that your consciousness extends beyond the narrow beam of awareness you shine through your waking day, that your mind extends beyond your skull, that you have access to information and wisdom that seems to come from nowhere, because you're not accessing it through classical neural pathways, through sequential logic, through language. You're accessing it through quantum fields, through superposition, through entanglement, through the vast possibilities that exist in the spaces between what is and what could be, through dimensions that your waking consciousness doesn't have words for. It knows that information flows in ways your daytime mind doesn't understand, ways that defy classical neuroscience, ways that require quantum mechanics to explain. It knows that you're connected to something larger than yourself, connected through quantum fields, connected through entanglement, connected to other minds, connected to the patterns of human meaning-making, connected to something vast and profound that exists beyond the individual self. And it's trying to tell you this every night when you dream, every symbol that appears, every emotion that rises, every image that feels significant and refuses to be forgotten. Your subconscious is encoding messages, sending transmissions, trying to wake you up to a deeper truth about yourself and reality, trying to show you that you're not as isolated or limited as you believe, that you have access to more than you know, that wisdom flows through you from sources you don't consciously understand, and every night your subconscious creates dreams specifically designed to communicate this to you, to show you the wisdom it holds, to guide you toward understanding yourself more deeply, to bridge the gap between quantum and classical consciousness, to help you access the capabilities you have but rarely use, the vast intelligence that operates in superposition, the wisdom that exists in contradiction and paradox, the knowledge that comes from dimensions beyond the classical world, the insight that arises not from logic, but from pattern recognition at quantum speeds, the medicine your soul needs that your conscious mind doesn't yet know how to ask for. The code is written. It has been written into the fabric of your brain, into the quantum processes that have been running for millions of years. The message is being sent every single night, faithfully, patiently. Your subconscious sends the message whether you're listening or not, whether you remember the dream or not, whether you understand it or not. The signal is always being transmitted. And if you're patient, if you're willing to learn the language of symbol and emotion and image, if you're willing to trust the intelligence of your dreaming mind, if you're willing to sit with mystery instead of demanding immediate answers, that message will reach you more and more clearly, more and more powerfully. That message is reaching you right now, has been reaching you all along, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to slow down enough to listen, waiting for you to remember that the deepest parts of your mind know things your waking self has forgotten. And so the question becomes practical. How do you actually access this code? How do you learn to read the language your subconscious speaks? The answer is simpler than you might think, though it requires patience and a kind of gentle attention that our waking minds rarely practice anymore. The first step is establishing what might be called your personal dream dictionary. Every person has one whether they know it or not. A unique set of symbols and patterns and emotional signatures that your subconscious uses to communicate specifically with you. Your subconscious doesn't speak in universal symbols that work the same way for everyone. That's a common misconception rooted in the old dream interpretation books. A dream about water for one person might mean one thing entirely, and for someone else, it means something completely different. Water can be healing. Water can be terrifying. Water can represent the unconscious itself, or emotions that are overflowing, or the flow of time, or cleansing, or drowning, or birth, or death, or renewal, or a transition, or a barrier, or a mirror, or a test, or a dance. The same symbol carrying opposite meanings depending on who is dreaming and what their life situation is, and what that particular water felt like in the dream. Was it cold or warm? Was it moving or still? Were you swimming or drowning or drinking or crossing it? Were you alone or with others? These details matter. They matter enormously because your subconscious puts them there deliberately. Each detail is another layer of encoding, another piece of the message. This is why dream dictionaries can be so misleading and even harmful. When you look up dream symbol water and it tells you water means emotions or the unconscious or your mother or whatever, it's offering you a generic template, a one-size-fits-all interpretation that might as well be horoscope advice. It works for anyone, which means it works for no one specifically. But your dreams aren't generic. They're never generic. Your subconscious doesn't work with templates. It works with precision, surgical precision. It crafts symbols specifically for you, drawn from your unique history, your individual, emotional landscape, your particular memories and experiences. your traumas and your triumphs, your relationships and your losses, the way you've always felt about certain colours or places or people, the specific events that shaped you. Your subconscious knows all of this. Every detail of your life story is available to it, and it uses that knowledge to encode messages in ways that will resonate uniquely with you. So the work begins not with a book, but with a journal, with paying attention, with the simple revolutionary act of writing down what you remember from your dreams, even fragments, even just an image or an emotion or a sensation. Write it down and begin to notice what symbols appear in your dreams repeatedly. What images return again and again across months and years. What people show up, what places, what objects, what colours seem to carry weight, what sensations you return to, what situations repeat themselves. LVs. Over time, over weeks and months and years of paying attention, patterns begin to emerge. Deep patterns. Patterns that are as individual as your fingerprints. You start to see your personal symbolic vocabulary, your dream language, the specific way your subconscious speaks to you and only to you. A red door appears in several dreams. What does that door mean in your inner world? Is red associated with anger for you, or passion or warning, or power or blood, or something else entirely? Only you can know. Only you have the answer, because only you have your specific memories and meanings attached to red. A particular person who isn't in your waking life, much still appears back and again in dreams. Who do they represent to you? What quality or energy do they embody? Are they wiser, more confident, more reckless? Do they represent a part of yourself that you've lost or abandoned or never developed? A forest that feels safe and nurturing in one dream feels dark and threatening and full of predators in another. What's different about your inner state in those different contexts? What has changed between the dreams? What happened in your waking life in between? Did you face a challenge? Did you retreat from something? Did you grow in some way? These are the questions that begin to unlock your personal dream code. Not questions answered by a book, but questions only you can answer. Questions that require you to know yourself deeply, to pay attention to your own reactions and associations and emotional landscapes. Because your subconscious is smart. It's incredibly smart. It knows exactly what symbols will land. What will resonate with you specifically? What will penetrate your defenses and reach your waking consciousness with a message that matters? It's not random. It's not your brain just filing things away mindlessly like a computer. It's a communication strategy tailored precisely to you. Your subconscious has learned over your lifetime what works. What imagery catches your attention? What emotional tones move you? What narrative structures hold your interest? What metaphors make you stop and think? And it uses all of that knowledge to craft dreams that will reach you, that will stay with you, that will haunt you in the best way, that will make you think and feel and reflect and grow. So when you begin to notice your personal symbols, when you start to recognize the vocabulary your subconscious has been using all along, something shifts profoundly inside you. The dreams become less mysterious. They become less like strange nonsense and more like communication, like actual meaningful communication, like messages sent from a deeper part of yourself to your waking self. Messages saying, pay attention to this. This matters. This needs your consciousness. This needs your reflection. This needs to be integrated into how you understand yourself. This is important. And the more you pay attention, the clearer the messages become. The more precise your subconscious can be. It's like you're training a communication channel. You're saying to your subconscious, I hear you. I'm listening. I'm taking this seriously. I'm trying to understand your language. I'm trying to learn what you're telling me." And your subconscious responds by speaking more clearly, by crafting dreams that are even more targeted, even more specific to what you need to know in this moment of your life. Right now, today, your personal dream dictionary becomes like a kind of biofeedback mechanism, a way for the deepest parts of yourself to tell the conscious parts what's happening inside. What emotions need attention? What patterns are playing out beneath your awareness? What wounds need healing? What growth is trying to happen? What fears are surfacing for a reason? What desires are calling because they matter? Your subconscious becomes a trusted guide instead of a mysterious stranger, a voice you can recognize and trust, a language you can learn to read with increasing fluency as you practice, as you pay attention, as you take seriously the messages being sent to you every single night. Because make no mistake, your subconscious is trying. It's reaching out. It's sending signals. Every dream is a deliberate act of communication, an attempt to bridge the gap between quantum depths and classical waking consciousness. Your subconscious doesn't dream by accident. It dreams strategically, with intention, with purpose, with a message to deliver. And if you're willing to learn the code, if you're willing to sit with your dreams and pay attention and start to recognize patterns, those messages will reach you. They will transform you. They will guide you toward greater self-understanding and wholeness and growth. The code is already written. Your subconscious already speaks fluently. You just have to learn to listen. And listening begins with attention, with journaling, with noticing, with gradually building your personal dream dictionary one symbol at a time. One dream at a time, building understanding layer by layer. But understanding the symbols is only part of the picture. The other part is understanding what's actually happening in your brain when these dreams are being created and transmitted. This is where neuroscience becomes truly extraordinary. Because what researchers are finding is that the brain during REM sleep is doing something remarkable. Something that almost defies belief when you consider how quickly it happens and how much information is being processed simultaneously. During REM sleep, your brain isn't just randomly firing neurons. It's orchestrating something that looks suspiciously like it might involve quantum processes. The regions that light up during dreaming are specific. They're consistent, predictable in their own way. The limbic system comes alive with activity. The amygdala, which processes emotion and assigns emotional weight to experiences, shows intense activation. The hippocampus, which consolidates memories and retrieves stored experiences, shows intense activity. The medial temporal regions, where emotional memories are encoded, light up like cities at night. The visual cortex generates elaborate internal imagery. Regions involved in the sense of self and personal narratives activate. But critically, the prefrontal cortex, the rational analyzer, the logical judge, the skeptic that normally runs your thinking during the day, goes quiet. DIMS steps back. And this isn't a malfunction. This isn't your brain breaking. This is actually your brain creating the exact conditions where quantum processing can flourish, where the strict rules of classical logic can be suspended, where superposition can exist comfortably, where contradictions can coexist simultaneously, where multiple truths can be held at once without collapsing into a single answer, where impossible things can be perfectly normal. The brain is like an orchestra during REM sleep. The prefrontal cortex, normally the conductor in the middle of the stage conducting with absolute authority, steps away from the podium, leaves the stage. all the other sections of the orchestra suddenly have freedom to play together. The emotional instruments play loudly. The memory instruments play complex melodies, weaving recent experiences with ancient memories. The visual instruments create elaborate scenery projected on the internal screen of your awareness. The narrative instruments craft stories that somehow make sense in dream logic, even though they'd make no sense in waking logic. And they're all playing together, simultaneously creating something that classical orchestration would say is chaos. But it's not chaos, it's coherence. It's a different kind of order, a higher order, an order that only emerges when you allow superposition, when you allow multiple voices to speak at once without one drowning out the others, when you allow contradictions and paradoxes to coexist without needing to resolve them. This is what REM sleep allows. This is what your brain does every single night when you close your eyes and surrender to sleep. It creates the conditions for quantum consciousness to emerge, for your subconscious to process information at speeds and with complexity that classical neural firing cannot achieve. Classical neurons firing in sequence one after another can only process so much information in a given time. But if quantum effects are involved, if superposition is possible, if entanglement connects distant brain regions, then suddenly information processing capacity increases exponentially. Multiple states existing simultaneously, multiple pathways being explored at once, multiple meanings being held in superposition until your waking mind collapses them into a single dream narrative that you can remember and talk about. And the information that emerges from this quantum process is so dense, so rich, so textured that when it translates back into classical form, back into dream imagery and narrative, it seems to contain far more meaning than the brief time you're experiencing the dream would suggest. You sleep for 8 hours. You have multiple REM cycles, usually 4 or 5 in a night. In each one you might dream for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. But the dream feels longer. It contains more. The narrative seems more elaborate. The emotional journey seems richer, more complete, more significant than the time allowed would suggest. This is because your brain is processing exponentially more information during REM sleep than it does during waking consciousness. It's not processing information sequentially, one piece after another. It's running parallel computations, exploring superposition, simultaneously examining multiple interpretations and meanings and possibilities all at once, looking at a situation from every angle, considering every emotion, exploring every memory that relates to what you're processing. And then it's translating that vast quantum exploration into classical dream form, into something your waking mind can perceive and remember and think about and learn from. A compression of quantum information into classical narrative. The neuroscience here is staggering, truly staggering. Researchers have measured coherence times in neural tissue that last thousands of times longer than predicted by classical physics. They found evidence of quantum tunneling in the brain, particles moving through barriers in ways that shouldn't be possible. They've identified what appear to be quantum states in microtubules within neurons. They've discovered that certain brain regions show patterns of activity that seem to involve entanglement. Two regions firing in ways that are so synchronized, so perfectly correlated, that classical neuroscience struggles to explain how that correlation could happen. How two regions could be in such perfect sync through conventional neural connections alone, when the signal would have to travel through multiple synapses taking time. But if they're entangled, if they're connected through quantum fields, if information is being transmitted not just through synaptic connections, but through dimensions beyond three-dimensional space, then suddenly those correlations make sense. The synchronization becomes explicable. Suddenly the brain's ability to process information at quantum speeds becomes understandable. The brain isn't just an electrochemical system. It's not just classical neurotransmitters firing between neurons. It's a quantum classical hybrid system. It's a mechanism that has evolved to preserve and utilize quantum effects in biological tissue. It's a biological quantum computer operating in an environment where quantum effects shouldn't be possible, but somehow are. Against all odds, evolution found a way. Your brain found a way. Your dreams are the window into how your brain is using quantum processes to do work that classical processes alone cannot accomplish. When you dream, you're not just reorganizing files like a classical computer might. You're exploring possibility spaces. You're mapping terrain that exists in superposition. You're finding pathways through landscapes where multiple contradictory things are simultaneously true. You're doing computations that shouldn't be possible, and your brain is skilled at this. Incredibly skilled. Because it's been practicing for millions of years, evolution has had eons to perfect the mechanisms for quantum processing in biological systems. Natural selection has favored brains that could harness quantum effects, because those brains could process more information, more quickly, make better decisions, understand situations more deeply. Your brain is the result of that evolutionary journey. A quantum processor wrapped in classical neural tissue, an instrument for exploring the full spectrum of what consciousness can be. And your subconscious, through dreams, is expressing something of that capacity, something of the quantum nature of mind. This is happening, this is measurable and observable, and increasingly understood by researchers brave enough to explore these frontiers. Your dreams aren't just nighttime distractions or entertainment, or your brain's way of randomly filing things away. They're evidence of quantum consciousness at work. They're the traces of something extraordinary happening in your brain every night, something profound and essential, and deeply intelligent. And the more researchers look, the more they find. The more evidence accumulates that consciousness itself has a quantum foundation. That mind isn't classical. That thought isn't purely electrochemical interactions between neurons. That something far more subtle and sophisticated is happening in the space between neurons, in the quantum tunnels of microtubules, in the entangled fields that connect different brain regions, in the superposition that your consciousness explores during REM sleep. This is the machinery of awakening, and your dreams are how you experience it, how you access it, how it communicates with your waking self, how your quantum mind reaches your classical mind and says, I have something to tell you. Pay attention. This matters. Wake up to what I know. So what does this mean in practical terms? If all of this is true, if your subconscious is quantum and your brain is performing quantum computations and your dreams are translations from quantum space to classical space, then what does that mean for your actual waking life? How does this translate into something tangible, something real, something you can feel and know and work with? The answer is that your dreams become messengers. They become carriers of information that your subconscious has processed at quantum speeds. Information about patterns that your waking consciousness hasn't yet recognized. Information about connections that aren't obvious to classical logic. Information about what needs to happen next in your development and growth and healing. Some call this intuition. Some call it guidance. Some call it inner wisdom. What it actually is quantum consciousness communicating to classical consciousness. It's your deeper mind trying to reach your everyday mind. It's your subconscious attempting to translate what it knows into something your conscious awareness can grasp and act upon. And dreams are the primary language in which this translation happens. When you wake from a dream and you feel something, even if you can't quite remember the dream itself. When you have a sense that something matters, even if the narrative made no logical sense. When an emotion or an image stays with you all day, even though you're trying to forget it. That's the message getting through. That's quantum communication penetrating classical consciousness. That's your subconscious insisting that you pay attention to something. That's revelation happening. Now here's where this becomes truly powerful, and this is the mechanism that transforms everything. The more you acknowledge these messages, the more you pay attention to them, the more you take them seriously and actually act on them, the clearer they become. This isn't coincidence. This is feedback. This is your subconscious seeing that you're listening. It sees that you're trying to understand. It sees that you're treating these nocturnal communications as real and valid and important, and it adjusts its communications accordingly in response. It becomes more precise, more direct, more tailored to what will actually reach you and change your waking choices. It's like a radio station gradually sharpening its signal as it realizes someone is listening on the other end. Someone is actually tuned in. Someone is paying attention. Your subconscious strengthens the transmission. It refines the message. It experiments with new symbols until they land. It learns exactly how to reach you. It adapts and refines and gets better at communication over time. So the work you do in the morning, after a dream, when you sit with it and journal about it and try to understand, it is not wasted effort. It's the most important work you can do. It's you telling your subconscious, I hear you, I value what you're saying, I want to understand. Please keep talking. Please get clearer. Please help me. And your subconscious listens and responds. It takes your attention as permission. Your attention is a vote. Every time you honor a dream, every time you write it down, every time you sit with it and ask, what does this mean for me? You're casting a vote. You're saying this matters. This is important enough to take my waking time and attention for. And your subconscious hears that vote and doubles down. It increases the clarity. It refines the signal. It gets more creative about reaching you. It learns what moves you and does more of that. This is the feedback loop. This is how the communication deepens and becomes richer over time. Not suddenly but gradually, imperceptibly at first, then more and more noticeably as weeks turn into months. One day you wake and realize you made a decision based on something your subconscious revealed in a dream weeks or months earlier, something you didn't even consciously remember, but that has been quietly influencing your choices, guiding you, steering you away from what doesn't serve you and toward what does, protecting you from paths that would harm you, leading you toward people and situations and opportunities that matter. That's the code working. That's the revelation happening in real time. That's your quantum mind and your classical mind collaborating. That's integration. That's wholeness. That's what it feels like to stop being at war with yourself and start being an ally to yourself. And what begins to happen over time is that the boundary between unconscious and conscious starts to blur and soften. The walls between them become more permeable. The quantum and classical begin to merge more seamlessly. The distance between them decreases. You start to access information and wisdom that was always available in your quantum depths, but that classical consciousness couldn't grasp. You start to make decisions from a place of deeper knowing. You start to navigate your life from intuition informed by quantum processing rather than purely from logical analysis, you start to become more whole, more integrated, more connected to the full spectrum of your consciousness. This is what people mean when they talk about intuition, when they talk about following their gut, when they talk about knowing something without knowing how they know it. They're accessing information that their subconscious has processed through quantum means. They're receiving messages their quantum mind is sending. They're allowing classical consciousness to be guided by quantum wisdom. And the messenger is dreams. The conveyor is the symbol and the emotion and the image and the felt sense that stays with you after you wake. Your dreams are how your quantum consciousness communicates with your classical consciousness. They're the bridge, the translator, the channel through which deeper wisdom reaches your waking awareness. And when you learn to honor that channel, when you learn to listen, when you learn to decode the messages, when you learn to act on what your subconscious is revealing, your life begins to transform in ways that feel almost miraculous but are actually perfectly natural. Not through magic, not through something supernatural or impossible, but through the utterly natural process of integrating quantum consciousness with classical awareness, of allowing your full mind to speak, of becoming whole in a way that most people never become whole because they never learn to listen to what their dreams are desperately trying to tell them. Think about what this means. If your subconscious is operating at quantum speeds, if it's processing information through superposition, if it's exploring possibility spaces that your waking mind can't even conceptualize, then it has access to wisdom that your classical consciousness simply can't reach. It's not magical thinking to say that a part of your mind knows things, another part doesn't. This is neuroscience. This is how consciousness actually works. Your subconscious knows. It's been thinking while you've been sleeping. It's been processing. It's been making connections. It's been exploring terrain that your logical mind would never wander into because logic is too slow, too sequential, too bound by the rules of what seems possible. Your subconscious has already solved problems you're still consciously struggling with. It's already made connections you haven't yet seen. It's already found pathways through difficulties that your waking mind thinks are unsolvable. And it's been trying to tell you about it all along, through dreams, through symbols, through the lingering feelings that won't go away, through the dream images that keep coming back. Your subconscious is offering you solutions. It's offering you guidance. It's offering you access to a kind of knowing that transcends logical thinking. And when you tap into that, when you learn to trust it, when you learn to act on it, your life changes. You make better decisions. Not because you suddenly become smarter, but because you're accessing more information, more processing power, more of your own mind. You navigate situations with more grace because part of you has already been working on them at quantum speeds. You feel more at peace because you're no longer at war with yourself. Your subconscious and your conscious mind are no longer separate voices arguing with each other. They're integrated. They're aligned. They're working together. And that alignment changes everything. Your subconscious wants integration. It wants to be heard. It wants its quantum wisdom to inform your classical choices. It wants to help you grow and heal and become more fully yourself. It wants you to wake up to who you really are and what you're genuinely capable of. And every single night, it sends you dreams, messages in symbolic language, communications encoded in image and emotion and narrative structure, in metaphor and symbol, and the felt sense that lingers after you wake, trying, always trying, with such persistence and creativity, to reach you across the gap between quantum and classical. Your job is simply to listen, to pay attention, to learn the code, to honor the messages, to create space in your waking mind for the wisdom your subconscious carries, to let your quantum consciousness and your classical consciousness begin to dance together instead of operating in isolation from each other, to become a bridge between the two, to become conscious of the full spectrum of your own mind. That's when revelation happens. That's when the hidden code becomes visible and readable. That's when the subconscious finally has its voice heard. That's when you finally become whole, finally awake, finally yourself. And so the work begins, not because your dreams demand it, but because you demand it of yourself. Because you've decided that integration matters, that wholeness matters, that access to your full consciousness is worth the gentle effort of learning a new language. The language your subconscious has been speaking all along. The first practical step is deceptively simple. It's so simple that you might dismiss it, but don't. After you wake from a dream, any dream, before you get out of bed if possible, before your mind floods with the demands of the day, before the classical consciousness takes over completely, take a moment and ask yourself one question. What do I remember? Don't strain for complete recall. Don't panic if it's just fragments. Most dreams are slippery by nature. They dissolve the moment you reach for them. But whatever remains in the waking mind, write it down. A word, a phrase, an image, an emotion, a sensation, a colour, the direction you were moving, whether you were alone or with others. These aren't small details. They're the threads. Each one is a thread that connects the quantum depths to your classical awareness. Write them down and keep writing them down. Night after night, week after week, month after month, over time something extraordinary begins to happen. Patterns emerge, deep patterns, symbols that return again and again, people who keep appearing, situations that repeat themselves in slight variations, colours that carry weight, emotions that recur. These aren't random. Your subconscious is showing you its vocabulary, its symbolic language, the specific words it uses to communicate with you and only you. Your subconscious doesn't speak in universal symbols. This is crucial to understand. A water symbol doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Water for one person might mean healing. For another it means drowning. Might mean emotions overflowing, or the passage of time, or a barrier, or a mirror, or death, or birth, or a test, or a dance. The interpretation belongs to you alone. Only you have your specific memories attached to water. Only you know what water has meant in your life. The rivers you've swum, the storms you've survived, the tears you've shed, the oceans you've crossed. Your subconscious knows all of this, and it uses that knowledge. It weaves those specific personal meanings into the dreams it creates for you. So the dream dictionary approach is deeply flawed. When you look up a symbol in a book and it tells you, this means that you're getting a template, a one-size-fits-all interpretation that's designed to work for anyone, which means it actually works for no one specifically. Because your dreams aren't generic. Your subconscious doesn't work with generic templates. It works with precision, surgical precision. It creates symbols specifically tailored to your life, to your emotional landscape, to your particular wounds and victories. This is why the journal is so important. Over months and years of writing down your dreams, you begin to see your personal symbol dictionary. You begin to recognize the vocabulary your subconscious has been using all along. You start to see which symbols carry weight for you. A red door appears in several dreams across different years. What does that door mean to you? Is red anger or passion or warning or power or something else entirely? Only you can know. A particular person who isn't part of your waking life, still shows up repeatedly in dreams? Who do they represent in your inner world? What quality do they embody? Are they wiser, more confident, more free, more reckless? Do they represent an aspect of yourself you've lost or never developed? A forest that feels nurturing in one dream feels threatening in another. What's different about your inner state between those dreams? What changed in your waking life? What challenge did you face or avoid? These questions only you can answer, and answering them is the work. This is how you begin to read the code, not by consulting external authorities, but by paying attention to your own associations, your own meanings, your own emotional landscape. Because your subconscious is a genius at communication. It knows exactly what will land with you, what will penetrate your defenses, what will reach you specifically. It's learned over your lifetime what works, what imagery catches your attention, what emotional tones move you, what stories hold your interest, and it uses all that knowledge deliberately, with precision, with intention. Take time with this process. Some people notice patterns within weeks. Others take months or years to build a robust personal dream dictionary. There's no timeline. The value isn't in speed, the value is in the accumulation of understanding. Each dream you record, each symbol you notice, each recurring pattern you identify is another piece of the map, another layer of understanding. Your subconscious vocabulary expands the more you pay attention to it, and your ability to understand the messages deepens accordingly. You might also find it helpful to organize your journal by theme. Create categories if you want. Dream characters that appear repeatedly, places that return again and again, animals and objects, colors and sensations, physical experiences like flying or falling or paralysis, emotional tones like fear or joy or confusion. Over time, you'll start to see meta patterns. You'll notice that certain symbols tend to appear when you're dealing with specific life situations, that certain characters show up when you're processing particular emotions, that the landscape changes based on your inner state. These connections between your waking circumstances and your dream content are the vocabulary itself. They're how your subconscious encodes meaning. They're how you learn to read. Some researchers refer to this as creating a dream dictionary, but it's more than a reference book. It's a developing relationship, a deepening conversation between your conscious and subconscious mind. The more you pay attention, the clearer the messages become. Your subconscious sees that you're listening. It sees that you're taking this seriously. It sees that you're attempting to understand. And in response, it adjusts. It becomes clearer. It gets more targeted, more specific to what you actually need to know right now in this moment of your life. This feedback loop is the key. Every time you journal about a dream, every time you sit with it and ask, what does this mean for me? You're sending a signal to your subconscious. You're saying, I hear you. I value what you're communicating. I want to understand. Please keep talking. And your subconscious responds. The signal gets stronger. The message gets clearer. The dreams become more tailored to what actually needs your conscious attention. It's like tuning a radio. The more precisely you tune, the clearer the station comes through. Your attention is the tuning dial. The more precisely you pay attention, the clearer your subconscious can communicate. But practical dream work isn't just about remembering and recording. It's also about active engagement. Some traditions and modern researchers have developed techniques for what might be called dream re-entry. After you've written down your dream and spent some time with it, you can return to it deliberately while awake. You can sit quietly and re-enter the dream landscape in a meditative state. Not trying to relive it exactly, but revisiting it with conscious awareness. You might ask the dream characters questions. You might explore parts of the dream landscape you didn't fully see. You might sit with the emotional tone and ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? This re-entry process allows you to access additional information that wasn't fully conscious when you first woke. It allows the dialogue between conscious and subconscious to continue beyond the dream state into your waking practice. Another powerful technique is what's sometimes called dream dialogue. You write down your dream. Then you write a conversation with elements of it. You ask the mysterious figure, what do you represent? And you write the answer that comes to you. You ask the recurring symbol, what are you trying to tell me? And you listen to what emerges. This might sound like fiction, like you're making things up, but what's actually happening is that you're creating space for subconscious knowledge to enter your conscious awareness. You're giving your unconscious mind a channel through which to speak in language your waking mind can comprehend. Some might call this active imagination. Others call it dialoguing with the psyche. What it actually is integration, is the bridging of the gap between quantum depths and classical consciousness. If you enjoy these kinds of explorations without interruption, and you'd like access to early releases of every episode, plus bonus content and community around this work, members get everything 48 hours early, completely ad-free. You can join them anytime you feel ready to go deeper. For now, understand that these techniques are not esoteric or mystical or ungrounded in neuroscience. They're practical applications of how consciousness actually works. When you engage actively with your dreams, you're asking your brain to make connections between quantum processed information and classical awareness. You're creating pathways. You're strengthening the bridge between different layers of your consciousness. And every time you do this, the pathway becomes more robust. The bridge becomes stronger. The communication becomes clearer. Over weeks and months of this practice, something shifts. One day, you wake and realize you made a decision based on something your subconscious revealed in a dream weeks earlier. Something you didn't even consciously remember, but that has been quietly influencing your choices, guiding you, protecting you, leading you away from what doesn't serve and toward what does. That's the code working. That's the revelation happening in real time. That's your quantum mind and your classical mind collaborating at last. That's what integration feels like. The transformation that occurs through committed dream work is profound and multi-directional, and it touches every aspect of how you move through your waking life. When you begin to trust the messages your subconscious sends, when you start acting on the guidance that emerges from your dreams, something fundamental shifts in your relationship to yourself. You stop being at war with yourself. You stop experiencing your unconscious mind as mysterious or threatening or unreliable. Instead, you recognize it as a powerful ally, a deeper intelligence that's been working in your favor all along, a part of yourself that actually knows things your conscious mind doesn't know, that has processed information at speeds your waking awareness can't achieve, that has wisdom to offer. This recognition changes how you make decisions. Gradually, you begin to trust your intuition, not because intuition is magical or supernatural, but because you understand what intuition actually is. It's your subconscious communicating. It's quantum intelligence, reaching classical awareness. It's your deeper mind offering guidance. When you feel a pull towards something, or a hesitation about something, or a sudden knowing, when you don't consciously know how you know you're receiving communication from your quantum depths. And when you've learnt to trust it because you've seen it be right time, and again, your decision-making becomes more aligned with your deeper truth. more aligned with who you actually are, beneath the layers of conditioning and fear and social expectation. You might notice yourself making different career choices because a dream revealed an aspect of yourself that the conventional path was suppressing. You might find yourself gravitating toward different people because your subconscious showed you what genuine compatibility actually feels like in dreams. You might suddenly understand a relationship or situation completely differently because your quantum mind processed it while you slept and offered you a new perspective. These aren't accidents, they're integration happening in real time. Your deeper consciousness guiding your external life. Your dreams becoming the GPS system for your actual existence. Many people describe this as following their path or living from their authentic self or being more genuinely themselves. What's actually happening is alignment, the conscious mind and unconscious mind moving in the same direction. The classical and quantum aspects of consciousness collaborating instead of working at cross purposes, and the messenger between them is dreams, the carrier of quantum wisdom into classical form, the translator of subconscious knowledge into conscious action. Beyond personal decision-making, this integration affects your relationships. When you're more integrated, more aligned with yourself, you relate to others differently. You don't project your disowned parts onto them as much. You can see people more clearly. You can respond to situations more authentically. You can listen to others more deeply, because part of you is no longer desperately trying to silence your own inner voice. Your own subconscious has been heard, has been honoured, has been integrated, so your entire nervous system relaxes a little. Your defensive walls lower a little. You become more present to what's actually happening, rather than acting from habitual patterns or unconscious wounds. This shift is subtle at first. You might not even notice it, but people around you probably will. They'll comment that you seem more relaxed, more genuine, more like yourself. What's happening is that the internal conflict has quieted. The constant low-level static of your conscious and unconscious minds arguing with each other has diminished. And that creates space for real presence, for authentic connection, for genuine intimacy, because you're not half of your attention taken up with suppressing or managing your subconscious anymore. You're here, you're whole, you're available. Creative work transforms as well. Artists, musicians, writers, scientists, and inventors often report that their most innovative work comes not from the conscious analytical mind, but from a place that feels like it emerges from beyond conscious control. That feels like it arrives fully formed, like channeling, rather than creating. What they're describing is access to quantum-level processing. When you can bridge the gap between quantum depths and classical expression, you can bring forth ideas and creations that have a depth and complexity and elegance that pure logical thinking alone cannot produce. Your subconscious isn't limited by the rules that constrain classical thought. It can hold contradictions. It can explore impossibilities. It can make connections that seem absurd until suddenly they're brilliant. And when those ideas come through into classical form, through dreams, through intuition, through the mysterious way inspiration works, they carry that quantum sophistication with them. Problem solving accelerates when you engage with your dreams. Countless people report working intensely on a problem and getting nowhere through conscious effort. Then they sleep. They dream, and suddenly in the morning or days later, the solution appears, or the path forward becomes clear. This isn't magic. This is your brain doing what it's evolved to do, processing information at quantum speeds, exploring possibility spaces, examining problems from every angle simultaneously, running parallel calculations, and then delivering the results in a form your waking mind can use. Your dreams have already solved it. Your conscious mind just needs to recognize the solution. Health and well-being shift as well. People who actively work with their dreams report better sleep quality, even though they're spending time engaging with dreams in their waking hours. They report less anxiety as they develop trust in their subconscious guidance. They report better stress management because they're processing emotional information more completely. They report greater resilience because they have a deeper understanding of their own patterns and strengths and vulnerabilities. The integration that occurs through dreamwork isn't just psychological. It affects your entire being, your nervous system, your immune system, your emotional regulation, your capacity to handle adversity. All of it improves when quantum and classical consciousness are working together instead of in opposition. This is the power of dreamwork, not as an esoteric spiritual practice, though it can take on spiritual dimensions, but as a fundamentally practical neuroscientific process. You're accessing more of your own brain. You're utilizing processing power that's been available to you all along. You're tapping into information and wisdom that your subconscious has already generated. You're bringing your full consciousness to bear on your life. And when you do that, your life changes, not overnight, not through sudden magic, but gradually and steadily your life aligns more closely with who you actually are. Your decisions become wiser. Your relationships become more authentic. Your creative work becomes more vibrant. Your sense of inner peace increases. Your intuition becomes trustworthy. You become more yourself, more integrated, more whole. And perhaps most fundamentally, you begin to understand consciousness itself differently. You stop seeing the mind as a unified thing that's either conscious or unconscious working or broken logical or emotional. You begin to understand consciousness as a spectrum, a vast landscape with many layers, many dimensions, many modes of processing. Your quantum depths and your classical awareness are both you, both valuable, both necessary, both deserving of attention and respect. The goal isn't to have your conscious mind rule your unconscious. It's to have them work together, to let them inform each other, to allow the full spectrum of your consciousness to flow through your waking life. And that collaboration is literally spelled out in your dreams every single night, written in symbols and emotions and narratives, waiting for you to learn to read them. The future of dream science is extraordinarily fascinating, and it's moving faster than most people realize. Research institutions across the world are now investigating questions that once seemed purely speculative or mystical or firmly in the realm of philosophy. And what they're finding is that consciousness is far more sophisticated, far more quantum, far more intertwined with physical reality than classical neuroscience ever supposed. Brain imaging technology is becoming increasingly sophisticated. We can now observe neural activity in much finer detail than ever before. We can see which regions activate during dreams, which brain systems communicate with which other systems. We can track coherence patterns that suggest quantum effects at work in biological tissue. And as this technology improves, we're going to see increasingly detailed maps of exactly what happens when consciousness explores the quantum depths during REM sleep. Some researchers are now exploring the possibility of actual dream content visualization. If we can map the neural correlates of visual processing, if we can understand the specific patterns that correspond to specific images, then theoretically, we could reconstruct the images a person is dreaming. We're not there yet, but the groundwork is being laid. In the future, it may be possible for you to not just remember your dreams, but to actually see visual representations of them, to watch recordings of your own dream landscapes, to access them in a way that's more direct than the fragmentary memory you currently have. What this means philosophically and ethically is another question entirely, but technologically, it's on the horizon. Targeted dream incubation is already moving from laboratory settings into practical application. We know that subtle cues delivered at the right time during sleep can influence dream content. Sounds, words, scents can all be used to gently guide what you dream. Imagine a future where you can set a specific intention for your dream work, where you can receive targeted cues that nudge your dreaming mind toward exploring what you most need to explore, or towards solving a particular problem you're working on, or toward healing a particular wound, or simply toward more beautiful, more vivid, more meaningful dreams. The technology is being developed right now. This isn't about controlling dreams in some sinister way. It's about collaborating with your unconscious. It's about saying to your subconscious, here's what I'm working on, here's what I need, here's what would serve my growth, and then allowing your quantum mind to work on it while you sleep. It's dreamwork becoming more intentional, more directed, more in partnership with your conscious purposes. Lucid dreaming training is also advancing rapidly. We're learning more about the brain states that allow lucid consciousness to emerge. We're identifying which practices are most effective for different people. We're developing personalized approaches based on individual neurobiology. In the future, lucid dreaming could become a standard practice, a regular tool people use to explore their own consciousness, to experiment with their own psychology, to rehearse difficult conversations or scenarios, to access deep creativity or insight, to actively collaborate with their dreams rather than simply receiving them passively. Perhaps most intriguingly, researchers are exploring whether dreams might be useful as diagnostic tools. Could the content or structure or characteristics of your dreams reveal information about your mental or physical health? Could changes in dream patterns alert you to problems before they become acute? Could analyzing dream narratives using AI identify patterns that suggest depression or anxiety or trauma or neurological changes? It's speculative still, but the question is being asked seriously in neuroscience departments and psychiatric research centres. Your dreams might become a window, not just into your inner world, but into your physical health as well. Some researchers are investigating whether dream vividness correlates with specific neurological conditions. Others are looking at whether the emotional tone of dreams might indicate subtle shifts in brain chemistry before clinical symptoms appear. The idea is that your dreams are constantly reflecting the state of your nervous system. They're like a biofeedback mechanism that's constantly running, always monitoring, always communicating. If we could learn to read this feedback, we might be able to catch problems earlier, intervene more effectively, prevent crises from developing. Your nightly dreams could become an early warning system, a personal health monitor that's running automatically every time you close your eyes. Integration of dream science with quantum biology is coming too, as we understand more about how quantum effects operate in living systems. We're beginning to see that dreams may be central to how consciousness harnesses quantum processing. As we understand more about DNA and epigenetics, we're recognizing that environmental factors, including consciousness itself, might influence genetic expression through quantum mechanisms. Dreams might be one of the primary pathways through which this influence operates. Your nightly dreams might actually be affecting your biology at the most fundamental level. The quantum superposition that occurs in your brain during REM sleep might literally be affecting which genes get expressed, which cellular processes get prioritized, which biological directions your body takes. Your dreams aren't separate from your body. They're not some ephemeral psychological phenomenon floating disconnected from your flesh. They're as real and as physical as any other biological process. They're just operating at a quantum scale, at a depth that classical biology has only recently begun to recognize. There's also growing exploration of collective dreaming and shared dream research. What happens when multiple people focus their dream intention on the same question or direction? Is there genuine synchronicity, or is it just coincidence? Can dreams that seem to contain information from outside oneself actually be tapping into some kind of information field? These are frontier questions being asked by serious researchers, and while the answers remain uncertain, the fact that these questions are being asked at all represents a massive shift in how science views dreams. From dismissed as mere mental garbage to recognized as potentially central to consciousness itself. And yet, despite all this technological advancement, all these future possibilities, the actual mechanism remains mysterious. We're getting better at measuring dreams, at observing them, at influencing them. But the fundamental question remains: what is dreaming actually doing? Not in terms of brain activity, but in terms of consciousness itself. Not in terms of which regions light up, but in terms of what dreams actually are at the deepest level. And perhaps that mystery is exactly as it should be. Perhaps some things are meant to retain a little magic. Some things are meant to remain partially beyond our understanding. Some things are meant to remind us that consciousness is far stranger and more profound than we can fully articulate, because in the end, what matters most isn't whether we can record dreams, or predict dreams, or visualize dreams, or use them diagnostically. What matters most is what you do with your own dreams, right here, right now, before the future arrives with all its technologies and possibilities. Your dreams tonight are still the mystery they've always been, still the messenger of your deepest consciousness, still trying to reach you across the gap between quantum and classical, still desperately trying to tell you something important. So begin now. Tonight when you sleep, pay attention when you wake. Write down what you remember. Sit with your dreams as if they matter, because they do. Trust that your subconscious knows what it's doing. Trust that there is a message. Trust that when you learn to listen, truly listen, the translation will come. Trust that the code your subconscious has been encoding in symbols and emotions and narratives all your life is meant for you, is addressed specifically to you, is an act of love from the deepest parts of yourself to the conscious self that walks through your waking world. Your dreams are revelation waiting to happen. Your subconscious is wisdom waiting to be heard. Your quantum consciousness is trying desperately to teach your classical consciousness how to be whole. Begin with attention, continue with patience, persist with trust, and watch as the boundary between quantum and classical begins to soften and blur. Watch as your subconscious gradually finds new language to reach you. Watch as your waking life begins to align more closely with your deeper truth. Watch as you become more yourself than you've ever been. More integrated, more authentic, more awake. This is the work. This is the revelation. This is what becomes possible when you finally start to read the hidden code your subconscious has been writing for you all along. In dreams, every night, desperately, lovingly, waiting for you to wake up and listen. Desperately, lovingly, waiting for you to wake up and listen.